First we have the Activision guy, and now we have Steve Mnuchin. Steve Mnuchin wants to buy TikTok. Steve Mnuchin. So again, I gotta ask, how are any of the viable options? How is anyone who could afford to buy TikTok any better than China? This just dropped, but Steve Mnuchin reportedly is trying to get together a bunch of buddies to buy TikTok. You know Steve Mnuchin, right? Secretary of the Treasury to Trump, Goldman Sachs Nepo hire and foreclosure king of California, professional gaslighter, Steve Mnuchin, the guy responsible for helping Trump repeal parts of Dodd-Frank, banking regulations. Steve Mnuchin, the guy who said that, there would be no tax cuts for the rich and then cut taxes for the rich. When criticized for this, he said it was not a promise. The guy who pushed a tax cut plan so bad it added $1.5 trillion to the deficit. The guy who, when touting said tax cuts, said they would pay for themselves, when it turned out the guy ordered no such analysis. The guy who was caught taking an Air Force jet ride to Kentucky just to see a solar eclipse, and when confronted said, "I had no interest in seeing a solar eclipse. I'm a New Yorker." The guy who asked for a military plane to fly him on his honeymoon, and then when confronted about that, said, "I'm very sensitive to the spending of government funds," and claimed that he would never ask for the government to pay for his personal travel. These, in fact, were not the only two instances of him asking for the government to pay for his personal travel. Steve Mnuchin, the guy who told Greta Thunberg that she needs to go to college before she gets to have an opinion on policy. The guy who publicly endorsed a movie he'd produced and then claimed that he'd never intended to publicly endorse the movie he'd produced. The guy who defended Trump's good guys on both sides statements by assuring the public that he absolutely didn't mean that. Steve Mnuchin, one of the few Bernie Madoff investors who cashed out shortly before the crumble and actually got to keep all the money. The guy who donated nearly $500,000 to the Trump and Paul Ryan campaigns in a matter of just 4 months. This is the guy we're hoping for. This is the kind of guy we trust not to use our data in nefarious ways and not to use the algorithms for political purposes. This is the sort of guy that we feel safe having that much power. Well, him or the Activision guy. Wow, Congress, you really secured our nation, didn't ya?